Hello, Jacob Rees-Mogg. I'm a little bit disappointed in you, sir, having watched or listened to your recent podcast called The Moggcast, hosted by Conservative Home. This one, he was interviewed by Mark Wallace. Jacob Rees-Mogg, very upstanding backbench MP who's become very famous internationally now through his just his mannerisms. He's a very, very posh gentleman. Very privileged upbringing. His father was the editor of the Times for a long time. Very highly respected family. Strong Catholic. Devout. He's equally loved and hated. Probably a bit more loved than hated. Obviously, he has very strong opinions on abortion. He's just a very, very conservative man. He's probably one of the last very few real conservatives in the Conservative Party. Anyway, I've had a lot of respect for him for the last couple of years. I find him very reassuring when I hear all the madness of Project Fear. You need to listen to a little bit of Jacob Rees-Mogg, and then you feel a little bit better. His knowledge on parliamentary procedure. He's a very successful businessman as well, an investor. So I would rather listen to someone like him when we're talking about the economy and what the projected economy is likely to be post-Brexit than the economists who keep getting it wrong every single time. So anyway, like Jacob Rees-Mogg, he was recently attacked pretty much by James O'Brien on LBC, and I actually wrote in to complain about that. Not because it's not the right of presenters, political commentators, interviewers to hold MPs' feet to the fire. Of course, that's your job. You wouldn't have been doing your job, Mr. O'Brien, if you weren't doing that, and your views are very strongly held by you. You should try to win the argument, okay? But the nature, the tone in his voice, the whole way that interview went, it felt nasty, very, very hate-filled. You could hear it simmering in his voice, just pure hatred. It was a horrible interview to listen to, and so anyway, I felt compelled to go and write to them about it. Anyway, so all these things about Jacob Rees-Mogg made me think that he was different to the usual politician who most of them now I just can't stand. He's very endearing, very polite when he speaks, even to those that are being rude to him. So when James O'Brien was being incredibly rude to him, he was being very polite back. When he gets heckled constantly, he's very polite. When Antifa crashed his speech at the UWE, the University West of England in Bristol, he was very, very polite, and he tried to engage them in conversation. All these things make him endearing, make him a very popular person. So there we go, being very nice about Jacob Rees-Mogg, and those are the reasons why I like the man. Until I heard episode 23, and I almost didn't hear anything else of the podcast other than his labelling of Tommy Robinson, Gerard Batten and UKIP as extremists and dangerous. They're dangerous to the mainstream, they're dangerous to the establishment, Mr. Mogg, but they're not extremists. I heard that, I felt compelled to go to the comments, give a thumbs down, and leave a polite, quite eloquent for me, comment about why I believe he's wrong and why I think he should actually maybe pay attention to what Tommy Robinson says. I scrolled through the comments, first a dozen or so, and then later on I've gone through and I've scrolled through loads and loads and loads, and almost entirely negative, sort of pretty much what I was saying, some much more eloquent than me, and some of them obviously were saying, why doesn't Mr. Rees-Mogg sit down and have a conversation with Tommy Robinson? They could do it privately, surely, if they want, or film it. But I think that would be enlightening for Mr. Mogg. I wrote to him. I've done this before on certain matters. It's quite easy to do. Just Google, how do I write to Jacob Rees-Mogg? There'll be a contact form. You have to leave your name and address, telephone number, all of that sort of stuff. There's no reason why you should fear that. So please do, especially if you're in his constituency, Bath, North East, Somerset, I think it is. Because I think he has to write back to you. If you leave your name and address, he has to write back to you. If you're not in his constituency, he doesn't have to. But please, thousands of people, I'm not sure how many people watch this video, it's going to have the name Tommy Robinson in it, so it might get a few more views than normal. Please write to him and let him know. But try to be eloquent, try not to swear, try to sort of sound reasonably intelligent, because he's got an opinion of Tommy Robinson supporters as being sort of meatheads, thuggish, spiderweb tattoo on their head with a can of Stella in hand at 9 o'clock in the morning. And you couldn't be more wrong, Mr. Mogg. Yes, there are some people like that support Tommy Robinson, and I'm sure deep down they're quite good people. They're just very, very different upbringing to me, and that's who they are. But not all Tommy Robinson supporters, Mr. Mogg, are thugs. They're not. The majority of them are not. And please go and watch the footage from his organised Brexit betrayal, and you won't see any trouble. You will only see decent people being respectful. Not like the other side could manage. Owen Jones. So is he being political now, or is he ignorant? It's probably a bit of both. He's definitely being political. I mean, he's a dyed-in-the-wall Tory, through and through and through. Cut him in half, stick a rock, and he says Tory all the way through. And time again, he supports his party and is very, very nice about other MPs for Conservatives. I won't say Tories because a lot of them are not Conservatives. But, when his Facebook people, Anna Soubry and Theresa May, he's just nice about them all the time. I mean, he points out that he disagrees and where they're wrong, does it very well, and it's sort of part of his charm, isn't it? The reason why people like him so much is because he doesn't usually fall into the trap of mislabelling people and just being mean. So, yeah, I think he's being political. I think he sees UKIP as a very real threat to the Conservatives, and he's very much on board with Nigel Farrage, who's setting up a new political party. And how disappointed am I to find out that David Curtin has left UKIP and is going on board with Nigel Farrage. That is really disappointed. David Curtin, I still like you. I think you're a really decent guy, but I'm disappointed you've done that, because that's going to just damage UKIP. It's going to damage the populist vote. So, and that will. It's going to divide all up the populist votes, and it'll just make our voice smaller. It's a real shame. It's a real shame. I mean, I've long since given up on Nigel Farrage. He's just basically trying to destroy UKIP by now. Hopefully more and more people that have previously supported him realise that, and the groundswell and the increasing numbers in UKIP will be there to show Farrage, no, there you go, it wasn't about you, it was about UKIP, it was about the party, not you, sir. Anyway, he used in the same sentence as he talked about extremism about a bit as the BNP. This happens all the time. And Mr. Mogg, do you remember when Nick Griffin from the BNP was actually given the spotlight? He was given a platform to speak, and people could cross-examine him, compare opinions, compare their views, and it was shown to be not a very nice person, and that was pretty much the end of Nick Griffin and the BNP. Now, I'm not going to go as far as to criticise everyone that joined the BNP. This is a whole sort of UKIP and For Britain thing where they butt heads, because the UKIP has a policy of not allowing people from the BNP or people that associate with the EDL in the party. I sort of disagree with it, but then I also contradict myself and sort of agree with it, because it does give them that platform to be able to say, no, we don't allow these people, we're not who you say we are. Although many of the people that joined the BNP would not be racists, they would have felt that they didn't have a voice, there was no one speaking up for them, and the BNP was probably the only party that was doing so. And many of the BNP's policies, I probably hear and probably go, yeah, actually, I sort of agree with what they're saying. They were speaking about grooming gangs and stuff like that. So I'm now wondering how many people that regularly listen to the Mogcast and also just really like Jacob Rees-Mogg are Tommy Robinson supporters. Maybe, Mr. Mogg, you might be surprised to realise how many people that appreciate you also appreciate Tommy Robinson. You would be surprised, sir. Tommy Robinson is not a perfect man. I've criticised him in the past, and I'll mention it again. On a certain occasion last year when he was in Scotland, I think it was Glasgow, out with the lads, letting off some steam, having a few drinks. Antifa turned up, and instead of having the sense or having a wingman there to sort of, in situations like that, to say, come on Tommy, let's get away from this. This is bad optics. Don't stand there sort of having it out verbally with these thugs. You've got an image now where people now sort of hold you up to a higher standard. So I can criticise Tommy Robinson for that, and you can criticise actions that he's done in the past, but it doesn't mean it's who he is now. And I'm going to refer to his recent brilliant documentaries that were released in 3 parts, I think it was, The Real Tommy Robinson. Brilliant. I really loved them. It's stuff that most of it I'd heard before and knew about, but you know, it was done in such a way, such a non-biased way, where the guy actually allowed Tommy Robinson to explain exactly what happened. So many of his prosecutions, actually, as long as exactly what he said is true, were really unjust. I mean, you know, like the one that you hear, the hooliganism, you know, I always thought, yeah, he was a bit of a casual and he probably got into a fight and got arrested. Now, he may well have done that sort of stuff. I don't know, and just got away with it. Maybe. But on this occasion, all he did was suggested that supporters of a Welsh team would make love to sheep. Now, that is quite normal goings on at football matches. If you've ever been to one, especially if you're in the sort of the boisterous, loud bit, you know, you will slag off and make fun of your the other team's supporters. I mean, that is just the whole point of going to football. It's tribalism. Tommy Robinson has probably been in quite a few fights. I think if you're brought up where he's from, a bit of a rough town, if you're not very good at using your fists, that's going to hold you back. Me, I was raised in sort of pretty middle class sort of upbringing. I haven't got a clue what to do with my fists. Totally useless like that. But still support Tommy Robinson. So the mainstream media will always ignore Tommy Robinson nowadays, or try to stitch him up. Same with Gerard Batten. When was the last time Gerard Batten got on mainstream media? You know, that wasn't RT. It's as long as it was Sky, I think, maybe a couple of months ago. They just don't want to interview them because they know that their views are not extreme, and they can't expose them for having extreme views, so they just ignore them, or they'll try to stitch them up and lie about them. Panorama. How interesting is this going to be? I am intrigued, Tommy. I love the fact that you're doing the drip of evidence, and looking forward to being able to watch what happens on the 23rd. I'm really sorry I won't be able to go. I have my daughter that day, and I'll be totally in the doghouse if I go to Manchester when I'm supposed to be with my daughter. Anyway, I think this one's pretty much come to an end. I waffled for a bit there. Let me know what you think, guys. Share your views. Share this video if you like. I think that if anything can happen from this, and Jacob Rees-Mogg actually finds out how unpopular his views are on Tommy Robinson from the people that he believes would support him and not support Tommy Robinson, I think he would be shocked, and it may do him some good. Open his eyes, Mr. Mogg. There's still a chance for you to redeem yourself here, if you want to be considered somebody that believes in the truth as being important, and I do believe there's still that in you, Mr. Mogg. Come on, don't be political, be a real person. Anyway, this one's over. Thank you very much. See you soon. Bye.